Intergalactic Christ.
Shalom and welcome to another Petach Hamol podcast from Be'er B'dan, teaching Noahide Judaism for Messianic Hebrews. It is Friday, the 9th of January 2026, and a happy new year to you all. This is the first broadcast, well, the exception of the Venezuela sort of warning, which came on Saturday night. This is the first proper broadcast of the year, and so I haven't get in the studio with me. I've got two guests today, so let's put them on. Here we are. Here we all are. They've got JC from Quranic Endgame, and we've got Namin, the Quranist, who's already been on JC's channel in the past. Thank you for joining me, gentlemen. How are you?
Thank you.
Well,
Joe.
Happy New Year, everyone watching.
Sir.
Shalom, salam. Happy New Year. It's very good. Okay. So we have got currently 4 live viewers who have picked up this obviously from their feeds, and they are welcome to post questions in the chat there, in the comments section, and we will try to address anything as we go by. If there's anybody who joins later, of course, the same applies. Long-standing members of the channel are, as usual, welcome into the studio at the end to join in discussion afterwards if you're interested to continue. There's the link in the comment section there. And what do you think, gentlemen? Are we open to also any kind of polemics after the show? If anybody wants to pop in to sort of push back against us?
Yeah, sure. I'm open to it.
You're open to it as well. Okay, so if you want to also be a polemic sort of pushback, you're welcome to click on the link and join us in the studio. I have put a star on that there, so that should be easy for everybody to see. All right, so the title is Trinitarian Quran? Question mark, question mark, question mark. A conversation with a Quranist, and Namin is our Quranist here. Thank you for joining us. So where should we start with this Trinitarian Quran? So Namin, is it correct that I've understood you are a Trinitarian and you are a Quran believer? Is that correct?
Yes. So the kind of Trinitarianism that I espouse is like a Nestorian version.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like somewhere in between traditional Trinitarianism and Unitarianism.
All right. So Nestorianism is adoptionism, where the Jesus, where therefore would be a regular human, born miraculously, conceived miraculously, but a regular human being, who was sort of united to or adopted by the Holy Spirit, or infused with the Holy Spirit, thereby making him sort of worthy of the title Son of God in the womb, as opposed to as an adult, which is where regular adoptionists sort of say he was adopted when John the Baptist baptized him. He received the Holy Spirit and he became worthy of the title Son of God, but not literally Son of God. Have I described your position correctly?
Yeah, I think you're quite close to it. I think all analogies are bad, but if I should try with a simple analogy just for our viewers to maybe get a picture, like my favorite superhero / supervillain in Marvel is Venom. So you have Eddie Brock, which is the actual human person, and he's an actual human person, just like me and you are human persons. And then there is this symbiote, which is much older than Eddie Brock, pre-existed Eddie Brock, and has access to all the knowledge of the universe. And the symbiote is like an alien person. And when they merge together, when they enter a union, they become Venom. So that union is Venom. And for me, the union between the human person, Jesus Christ, who is a human person just like we are, and his union with the divine person, God the Son, is for me the Christ al-Masih.
Very good, very interesting.
That's just a short explanation so that viewers have.
That's a very good one. I think it's good to use modern pop culture to try and get these things across, because when you try, as I have, to try to explain all the different types of Christology which have been discussed in the past, and you're using technical, philosophical, theological terminology, which is really only understood by sort of PhD candidates usually of a Christian background studying Christian theology, it gets very, very thick and difficult for the audience to penetrate what exactly you're talking about, and that is a major problem, I think, that has alienated a lot of people from the Christology discussions. So using a modern analogy with Venom I think is a good idea. The question is, I think, what comes down. I'll just expand on this a little bit more. Since all of the Christological discussions in history come down to, if we take this Venom example. Sorry, what was the name of the character, the human who is taken over by Venom? What's the person?
Eddie Brock.
Eddie. Okay, I'll call him Eddie. So with if you use that analogy with Eddie and Venom, the question is how much Eddie remains or is there when he is under the or in the symbiotic sort of state of being Venom. Is it the pure alien in control, or is Eddie in control at any element, or is he just kind of in the background, locked up, not able to do anything? And that's what all the Christological discussions are about. How much human Jesus is there, and how much divine Son of God is there in the life of Jesus, and at which point does it take over? So that's an interesting point of discussion.
And your question reflects this internal tension between the human and the divine nature that has sparked these Christological debates for thousands of years. And if we can think about it like in a simple manner and connect it to the Venom analogy, so in the union with the symbiote, Eddie Brock gains access to all the knowledge and all the powers that the symbiote has. In the same way, Jesus, Ibn Maryam, the son of Mary, when he is in this union with God the Son, he has access to all the knowledge and all the powers that God the Son has, which is like a lot. Okay, it's like really a lot. And this access that he has is the trial that he goes through. So he can use these powers and he can abuse them, and he can like subjugate the whole world to him. But instead he makes the choice to be like humble, just like Eddie Brock makes the choice to be a hero instead of being a villain. So if you connect it to the Philippians, is it Philippians chapter 2 verse 5 passage, which says that Paul describes Christ as somebody that was in the form of God. So he had like all the access to God's knowledge, to the knowledge of God the Son, and all the powers of God the Son. So he could have abused those powers. He could have like grasped for the apple of eternal life, just like Adam tried to grasp for it. And Adam did grasp it, so he fell. But Christ, he managed to not grasp it. He managed to humble himself. He managed to fulfill his destiny, suffer, die on the cross, and hence God rewarded him and resurrected him, and made his name one name that is like praised by all nations, so to say.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's like the simplest explanation I can give.
No, it's very good. I think you're. Yes, go on, JC. I'm going to share that passage while you're talking.
Yeah, may I just try to roll back the conversation just a little bit to actually explain a bit of how we actually got in touch and how we started to speak about these things, so people get a little bit more of context. Supposed to, there are three people talking about the natures of Christ, and it's going to be confusing. But would it be okay if I do a little bit of an introduction in that manner?
Go for it. Yes, please.
So, well, first of all, actually, thank you for using Marvel-related examples. As you can see from the name of my channel, I didn't actually choose the name Endgame just by complete random chance. I'm a big fan of Marvel, so that's very good. You're actually speaking my language now. So Norman was actually following my channel and stuff, and I noticed that every single time that he commented on something, he was always very respectful, very insightful. The things that he said based on those videos were very, very good. And then quite early on, he said, well, I'm a Quranist. And then I was very confused. I was like, no, hang on a minute. Everything that we show is that the Quran doesn't talk about the Muhammad of the narrative. Everything is just different. How can a Quranist actually be so respectful and actually engaging? So I was very confused about that. And so I said to Norman, okay, let's have a conversation because there is something here I don't quite understand. Hence why we had this conversation, the thumbnail that you have shown here, which was, okay, so what are your beliefs exactly? And maybe that's something, Norman, that you can explain well, briefly or in as much detail as you like, as to how you went from being basically Sunni, like really following the Quran and doing all of those studies, to a position where you still look at the Quran, but say the Quran is telling a different story, and how that then joins into it's all about Christ, and we need to talk about the different natures. Maybe give a little bit of background of how you went from A to B, because people watching, they will say he's not a Muslim, he is basically just faking.
Good point. Okay.
Yeah. So I'll try to be as short as possible. So my way was through accessing academic research, primarily the works of the Inara group. But I came across the Inara by studying Christoph Luxemburg's work. So for me, that was like an eye-opener that the Quran is not only Arabic. So that kind of opened up like a whole new world to me, and maybe think like in less rigid ways. And if I'm gonna summarize why I believe the standard Islamic narrative not to be based, not to hold ground, I would put it in this matter. The Quran is older than the Hadith books and the Sirah, much older. It has another geography, so it's not from the same geographical place. And the language of the Quran and the language of the Hadiths and the Sirah is so much different.
Exactly.
And those three factors really speak a lot against the standard Islamic narrative. And after that point, you can like choose to reject the standard Islamic narrative, which I do, But you can also take the approach that generally Western academia today has, is that they rejected, but in like a they call it, yes, we don't believe in the standard Islamic narrative, but we still believe that there is what they call a skeleton, okay, a skeleton, and they don't really like the Inara group, because the Inara group considers that skeleton is really not there, not even the skeleton.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
So I guess that has been my journey. I have always been a Quranist, and I'm still a Quranist. But the question is, do you hold to the standard Islamic narrative, which many Quranists do? And I believe that they hold to it because they haven't accessed much of the academic research, especially from people like Luxemburg and like Inara. What they probably do is they read the research of Dr. Joshua Little, which is like the mainstream academic view, and it's also revisionist, but it still holds to this skeleton, the skeleton of the standard Islamic narrative. So they feel comfortable in still believing in the standard Islamic narrative, but through this skeleton form. So that's
right.
Very good. Does that make it clear, or should I maybe clarify?
It's clear. I think it's clear for. The difficulty is that I was actually involved with the founders of Inara back in 1999, 2000, 2001, and I actually know, or at that time knew, the person who calls himself Christoph Luxemburg, who is actually. Obviously, everyone knows that he was obviously a Lebanese Christian who was trying to make peace with Muslims. Because Lebanon is a complex situation where you got the Maronites. The president has to be a Maronite, and then you've got a huge Shia population as well. And so there's a big interest in trying to find peace between Islam and Christianity in Lebanon. And of course, I'm an Israeli citizen as well. And I have an interest in peace with Lebanon as well. I don't, just so people know, I'm not a gung-ho Zionist who believes that our Israeli government has the right to touch an inch of Lebanese soil. And I have no explanation, no idea, no excuse for any time that Israel has ever gone into Lebanon. So I'm completely opposed to occupation and expansionism and everything like that. But the point is, I was in this group. It was originally the Rope. It was called the Rope, and then it was called the Ultimate Bulletin Board for something called the. It was Lath's. What was it called? What was it called? Open Free Minds, freeminds.org or something like that. And there was a lot of discussion going on there.
Isn't that like a Quranist group? Free Minds?
It was, yes. Free Minds was. It was actually the original. Well, the original ones were the submitters, the Canadian group who were following Rashid Khalifa. They call themselves the 19ers.
Khalifa's group.
Yeah, Khalifa's group, right? 19ers. And then people were leaving the 19ers because they felt that it wasn't really free Quranism. It was actually Rashid Khalifism. And you have to just believe blindly in this, and it is blindly in this so-called mathematical miracle of the Quran. And there was a gentleman from Frankfurt, an Egyptian from Frankfurt, and I got together to try and test out this mathematical miracle. We put all the. Actually, I have. I'll show you an example of what we did. Although it's only. Yeah, I'll show you. It's not going to be very easy for you to understand. But let me put this on the screen here. Here's let's put that on the screen. Share the screen. How do I have to do it like this now, right? No, I have to share screen again. Share screen. Yeah. So this is what we ended up with, but this is in Hebrew. This is actually the Quranic text. Can you see this? Everybody can see this?
Yes. Can you zoom in a little bit? It's difficult to read. Yeah,
let's make that bigger. So we this is old. This is very, very old. But in order for me to learn the the Quran, I had to put the Arabic. What we did is we put the entire Quran into an Excel spreadsheet like this, and then I had to use the Judeo-Arabic because I couldn't read Arabic at that time. Now I can read Arabic, but this is still the original Judeo-Arabic. So this is actually says Inna Allah. Actually, this is pretty. If we get to something which most people might know. Here, this one, for example, is very straightforward. And here in Hebrew, it says Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. That's actually what it says. It just says it in Judeo-Arabic instead. So we put the whole thing into Excel and made a database, basically. And we could change the Arabic letters to any letters. We can change the Hebrew letters to Arabic letters or to English letters using like a find and replace function. And we could also change them into numbers. So we could, and we used a base 19 to try and see if it really worked. So we put it into the computers and try to test the submitters' claims about the 19 miracle. And they're bogus. There are things which are 19, but it's not all the way throughout. It's not completely solid all the way through. And so that was when the rope discussion group began with the founders of Inara as well, where they were just trying to find out. They say, okay, what we do all have in common is we're trying to find out what is the mystery behind the Quran really. The thing that we learned about this 19 thing is that although it's not a miracle, it's not all the way throughout the Quran, and the Rashid Khalifa group are actually changing letters to try and make it fit. We did learn that there is a Jewish technique of encrypting, if you like, a text in the olden days to make sure that it wouldn't be corrupted. And that's what this 19 thing was all about. In fact, the letters, we've talked about it, the Muqatat, we discussed that on the channel before. And so as you're looking at the Quran, I'm also of obviously a secular background. I wasn't very religious at that time. But tell me how much of this you resonates with you, because it's interesting to see. I wasn't religious at that time. Yeah?
Just for the viewers to get like a clear picture what we're talking about. So there are like verses in the Quran that talk about like God protecting something, right? Which people have interpreted as protecting the Quran. So the hypothesis behind this mathematical miracle was that a protection has been done by God through this embedded code, so that if you like change a verse, etc., you kind of collapse the code, and then you can like expose a possible corruption.
Right.
The problem here, just for the viewers to understand, just in short, is that when you're doing these calculations, you need to apply certain measuring methods of measurement. And the problem with Khalifa was that he wasn't consistent in the methods he applied, because usually in order for it to be scientifically based, you need to apply like the same method in different scenarios to see if the outcome becomes the same. So that was the problem with his approach. But as you said, this thing with text maybe having like embedded code and hidden messages, there might be like something to it. JC had a very interesting video on his channel where he was talking about the Hadith stories, and that maybe we have looked at them in the wrong way. Even we that are critical towards the Hadith, they may be like the reason why they are so comical many times is maybe because they have like hidden or embedded critical
meanings.
Messages. Yeah. Exactly. That only people with like not a high intellect can access.
Yeah.
So all in all, there might be something to it, but it's all about how consistent and scientific your measurement methods are. And when you are like when you have a very strong agenda that you want to approach, you sometimes like tweak that consistency of measurement methods to fit your end goal.
Yeah,
that's
and
right.
If I may add to that with numerology, particularly with numerology, you really need to trust the person who is really doing that work. And like Norman said, they have to be very consistent. Otherwise, all that you're doing is you're trying to deceive people. It's like, for example, one example I really like to say, because I think it's fun, is that the Quran has 6,236 verses. So I could say, well, you see, the first number is a 6, the last one is a 6, and the 2 in the middle, if you multiply them, you get a 6, is 666, number of the beast, you see, trust me, bro. And it's like, no, that is numerology. It's just a fun thing, but it doesn't get you anywhere. So if I wanted to go through the Quran and find any number, it's like, yes, I can use computers and stuff. I can find any number, but I would be deceiving you. It doesn't mean that that code is there. Now, it could be that the codes are there, but like Norman said, you have to be very consistent. And I believe that Rashad Khalifa, in order to make his miracle work, he removed like verses from here, verses from there.
That's exactly what he did. In the end, he got so into it that he started just deleting. There are 2 verses, I think, in Surah 2, isn't it?
It's Surah 9.
Surah 9, sorry. Two verses in Surah 9. Yeah. So this is Rashid Khalid. This is the website of the submitters, by the way, which we're looking at right now, just so you have some more context behind it. Yeah.
Can we just illustrate something here for the viewers?
Yeah, sure.
If you have a Rashad Khalifa's translation, if you go to chapter 4,
it's on this
verse
website.
171.
Let me just
because you're on their website, right? So they probably have their translation there.
I think this is
so
it.
If we just check something.
I have to download it. Grief.
Okay.
Yeah. Well.
Okay, we can do like this instead.
It's a zipped file as well. It'll take a while to download and unzip that. Yeah. Go on. If you've got something else, drop it on the screen.
Yeah. We can do it like this. If you go to if you write the Great Quran with a big K in Google, can you do that?
Yeah.
And then you will get access to Baba Shuaib's translation, and he has translated 471 in the same verse, in the same way as Khalifa. So we can illustrate the point in that way.
This is a PDF download. Yeah.
No, not Baba Shuaib's. If you press on his webpage,
website,
you come to you comes to his translation, and then you can write 4:171. And we can see Baba Shuaib's translation.
Is this the one?
I want to show you how he has translated. Yeah. So you see here in the search. Yeah. So you can write 4:, and this is a Quranist translation as well. That is that has been translated, where this verse has been translated in the same manner as Khalifa has translated. Okay. So you see
a little bit difficult to do color with the colors. Bad choice of colors of black. I can't see that because of my eyes, but it says it's in red and gray. I'm not sure if other people can see that.
Did you write 4:171?
Oh, sorry. I thought I did, but let me try again. 4:171.
Yeah. If you write that, you click.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, there it is.
Good. So.
People of the book.
Excellent. All right. Yeah.
This is very good. I like the way he's got the Arabic there, and he's got the transliteration, so you can see word by word. Yeah. People of the book. Al Kitab. Do not la trespass taglu. Fi dinkum.
Yeah, so this verse is talking about, it's addressing the Ahlul Kitab, the people of the book, or the eligibles of the writing, as Saint Murad has translated it. So if you go to where it says, let's see here, this وَلَا تَقُولُوا ثَلَاثَةٌ. You see that phrase? وَلَا تَقُولُوا ثَلَاثَةً. So he has translated it as and do not say Trinity. You see that? You see there?
وَلَا
تَقُولُوا ثَلَاثَةً, and do not say Trinity, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't actually say Trinity, does it?
That's I'm getting to that, but I just want to show the viewers something. Hold on.
Yeah,
I'm getting to that.
Okay.
if you now go, if you open up Saint Mora's translation and you go to Surah 56.
Now, I don't know.
Maybe
I don't
JC
have that
can
on
do
this
that.
computer, actually. Yeah, you have
Can you do that, JC? Can you open up Saint Mora's translation and go to Surah 56?
Yep, 1 second. Normally it's open, but I close everything before it went live to make sure, you know, I have the computer not struggling. So give me a sec and I'll be there.
I just want to illustrate these fine prints, these details, because you know the devil is in the details. So I want to show the viewers the details, and I feel sometimes that I these are the details I wanted to show to Adam Seeker and Hatun, but they were so up in emotions, so I didn't have the opportunity to do that.
Actually, while I'm opening this, let me just actually address this, and I had mentioned this to Norman. So Norman's view is very much like ours, although we all come from different, different areas of research. But the same. The Quran has nothing to do with Muhammad. Now, people like with the best will in the world, Hatun Tash or Adam Seeker, they are not ready at the moment. They still think that everything is about Muhammad. So going and telling them, hey, Muhammad is not there, is they think that you are just trolling. But don't worry, they will get there. It's just a matter of time, but the necessary steps need to be taken to actually get there. So
and
don't
there's
worry,
so
I've
much,
got
of
this.
course. Yeah, there's so much to learn.
Inshallah.
I mean, you can't just jump because the Islamic context is basically a kind of, it's the same with any major religion which has been established for a long time. Compare that to if you are a believer, compare that to a small religious sect, say in your general sort of field, whether it's a small Islamic sect or a small Christian sect, and a new one which is challenging the norms. The attitude is always to treat such small things as a cult. They're cultists and they're following a cult.
Exactly.
But when the cult becomes 1 billion people, nobody questions the cult. Nobody talks about the brainwashing. Nobody talks about. But the fact of the matter is, all of the same techniques which are used by a small religious cult with brainwashing, etc., and cutting you off from the other, any kind of critical analysis, and not talking with other people outside of the group, that's very much a part of every major religion as well. Catholics are encouraged to speak and to engage with other Catholics and not to talk with other Christians. The same, if you're a Presbyterian, you're encouraged to talk and have friends of the Presbyterian community and not really to get into religious discussions with the non-Presbyterians. The same goes with Sunnis in Islam, and the same goes with Shia and spiritual Shia. So it's all like that. And that is a big challenge for anybody who is already inside of a major religious movement, to start actually thinking, wait a second, am I really seeing things as they really are, or am I only seeing through the lenses of my denomination? And that's what a Quranist is trying to get away from, is trying to break out of that blinkered.
Yeah, it's like it's this turf mentality, that you kind of get caught into. So do you have Saint Mora's translation?
Yes, I have just shared it. So, Joe, if you want to actually put it on a screen, hopefully it works. And we are all
you can
tribal.
Put up the Arabic as well,
humans,
or just English. It's up to you.
There it is. Okay, it's on screen here. Yeah, let's put that one on and take this one off.
So the thing, just to comment on this, that we are all very tribal. Humans, we are that in nature.
Yeah, we are.
And also we develop like tunnel vision. So once we have concluded one thing, it's very difficult to break through that. So that's normal, and we are all like that to a degree. It's like people who follow football or whatever it is, but we will get there. In the end, we're all moving in one direction, and I bring a sledgehammer to these conversations.
Yeah,
it's
that's
always
right.
good.
Yeah,
okay,
so you can see here,
Murad's.
Yeah, so here JC has Saint Mora's translation 4:171, and he has translated Thalathahu as 3. Okay,
that's correct. Yeah.
Now if we go to Surah 56. And let's start by going to verse 7. So if you go to
in which translation?
Saint Mora's translation.
Okay, can you do that, please,
JC? Where do you want me to go?
Surah 56, verse 7. I can just read it here in Arabic. وَكُنْتُمْ أَزْوَاجًا ثَلَاثَةً.
56.
Do
7,
the guests see it? Do you see it? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And they were 3 mates, right? And the interesting thing with Baba Shu'aib's translation is he also says like 3 there. Okay. It doesn't say Trinity of mates. Okay.
Right.
But look at this now. Look at this now. If you go to
I'll just show that with Baba Shu'aib as well, just quickly.
Yeah, go to Baba Shu'aib.
Just so people can trust us. So we're not saying, trust Wallahi, bro, trust me, bro. So here you go. It's there. Again, this is in... there
you go. It's 3, right? It's not Trinity.
It's not Trinity. Yeah. So even he has actually broken the... Whoops. He's broken the... I've lost the page now.
Yeah.
I'll get that.
Yeah.
Even he's broken his rule there.
Yeah. And now look at this. Look at this. So now if you go to back to chapter 56, verse 13, and this says something very interesting. It says, ثُلَّةٌ min al-awalin. ثُلَّةٌ min al-awalin. And here it doesn't say Talata, it says Thulla. And see, let's just see how Saint Murad has translated it. He has
so I'll just show it slowly, slow down, slow. You go too fast. Yes. You go too fast.
I'm going too fast. Sorry.
There's a quotation from Mozart, Amadeus, if anyone knows. Okay, so Thulatin, and there he says a group. Yeah, he's got it translated.
Yeah, it says a group, right?
Yeah.
But you see, it sounds very similar to Thalata. It's just the diacritics that are changed. And if you go to Murad, this
56 verse 13.
Yes, verse 13.
A triad.
A triad. Mm-hmm. So you see here, now the viewers can see very concretely that this Quranic author can, if he wants to, distinguish between 3, which are like 3 numerically distinct, and he, the author, can also differentiate between 3 that are unified as a triad. Okay?
Yeah.
So if
he
the
wanted
Quranic
to,
author,
I get you.
Yeah. So if the Quranic author in chapter 4, verse 177 wanted to go for the Orthodox Trinitarian view, that author would have said, وَلَا تَقُولُ ثُلَّةٌ. Okay,
right.
And do not say triad.
Correct.
And that would have been comprehensible too. It
Very
would have been
clear.
a primitive way to say it. It wouldn't have been like an advanced. It would have been an archaic way. But he would have gotten the point across. And this is what I mean when I say the devil is in the details.
Yes.
Because
may I ask you a question, please?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Okay, finish your sentence and then I'll ask, but please give me a chance to ask. In order to carry on?
So in order to show both Muslims and Christians why we question the standard Islamic narratives, we need to get into the nitty-gritty. And usually the Quran is at the center, and its language as well, and the way its language is translated.
See, I like what you did here is you've used the Quranic language itself to show the argument, which is actually what the Quranists do. But one of the things that I do have against Quranists is that they don't entertain or look at any of the historical context around the time and when the Quran was revealed. But you've done a good job showing if the Quran was going to attack a triad, he would have used the word triad because the word triad is used in chapter 56, verse 13. So why on earth did he use the word 3 in the other chapter if he was attacking a triad? He wasn't attacking a triad. The logical conclusion, therefore, is this author was not attacking a triad. This author was attacking tritheism, which is a kind of polytheism when you say there are 3 gods, and therefore is attacking the tritheists. Perfect explanation using the Quran alone as a guide. But I as I said, I have a conflict with Quranists because I say, why don't you actually also look at the context? Because the word for Trinity, as used by Arabic Christians in the 7th century, in the 5th century, in the 4th century, is thaluth. And the word thaluth is not used in the Quran even one time. It's not criticized ever. Now, if they were attacking the Trinity, they would certainly have used at least the word triad, which you found here, or the word thaluth, which is actually the word for Trinity among Arabic Christians. And yet that word is never attacked. Therefore, we cannot say, in all honesty, by all rationality, by all reason, by all historical fact, and the Quranic language itself, which you've done here, well done, Naramin, you cannot say that the Quran has ever been attacking the Trinity. It has been attacking three. It has, but it's never attacked Thaluth. It's never attacked the Trinity. So well done. Excellent. I'm very happy
And
about
you also
that.
actually have
very interesting.
You actually have a historic context. I tend to do like a live with JC on this, where I kind of go into more details. But there is actually a historic context which is quite close to when the Quran was approximately written. I think the year is 612 something, and there is like a big council being held, which actually condemns
That's right.
a Christian heresy called
the
tritheism.
You're absolutely correct. You're talking about the first ecumenical, the first Oriental Orthodox Council, where the Oriental Orthodox have, you see, so Oriental Orthodoxy is different from Trinitarianism. It's a different, so sorry, not Trinitarian, from Nestorianism, and this comes down to the Christology issue we were talking about at the beginning. How much of, when we used the example with venom and eddy, how much of eddy is inside of venom, and when venom is active, or is it just pure alien? It's like that question is the Christology the argument. Now, the fundamental difference between Nestorians and the Oriental Orthodox, although the Nestorians actually came in underneath the Oriental Orthodox in the year 11, I think it's 1145, but that was a long time later. But the question in the 7th century, at the beginning of the 7th century, at this council that you mentioned, was whether Jesus was one being, one person, or two beings, two people. So the Nestorian says two, and the Oriental Orthodox said he's one. But among the position that there is one divine essence, one divine nature operating inside of Jesus from the monophysite or Oriental Orthodox position, that led to a difficulty in trying to understand the nature of Jesus and the difference between Jesus and God the Father and God the Holy Spirit. So how do we distinguish between these three? And it led to a belief that there's no distinction. They all have the same essence. They're just three different people or three different persons with the same, with each of them is divine. So that led to the belief in three gods or tritheism, which was a heresy, as you said, condemned in the early 600s, the early 7th century, by the first sort of council of the Oriental Orthodox, which was convened to sort of deal with the fragmentation and persecution of Armenian and Coptic and Syriac Christians, and also the Maphrian, the Indian Christians and the Ethiopian Christians, who were trying to resist the expansionism of Rome. And so they needed to come together, and they needed to agree on what was heresy and what was not heresy. And so one of the things they outlawed was tritheism, and that's exactly what the Quran is doing here. You're absolutely spot on. The Quran is also outlawing the tritheism.
Yeah, just to try to make it a bit simpler for the viewers. Sure. So you can have conflicts about how the incarnation works. Okay, so then there is a conflict. Okay, you have the human nature and you have the divine nature. How do they work together? And in regards to Nestorianism, is Christ only one person, one divine person, or is he also a divine and a human person at the same time, as Nestorians claim? So that's when it comes to the doctrine of incarnation. Then there is the doctrine of the Trinity when it comes to the nature of God, that he is like one divine nature, but that one divine nature that you shouldn't say that how can I put this in a simple way? One divine nature, and just to say and like three hypostases, right? These three divine persons. Okay.
Personas, yeah.
Personas, yeah. So the thing that Tritis did, okay, so if you imagine, like today many Muslims, when they attack the Trinity, they always say, three gods, and then the Christians are like, they want to defend, it's like they want to show it's not three gods, and then there are like different models to do that. What Philipponos did, okay, he just said, no, there are actually three instances of the divine nature. So they're like three divine natures that, and the hypostasis have like three differentiated wills that work in full harmony because of complete and utter divine love. And this is what was condemned when it comes to tritheism, that the persons don't have a differentiated will. They're not three instances of the divine nature, but rather the persons, the God has one will, and as Gregory of Nyssa said, one activity when it's operating in creation. So the three there is not to say three distinct natures, because the Godhead is like a triad, one will and one divine action. So that's basically what the Quran is talking about.
Yes, it does. It takes this position a lot. Now, I would have... So this is interesting because it comes down to the real discussion. I mean, the only real discussion on the Quran's Christology, when you understand it at that level. And by the way, Peter von Sivers understands this as well. I think Fred Donner understands this as well. And I think probably Gabriel Sommer understands this as well. But there are not many people out there who understand it at this level that we can talk about right now. But the real discussion, and the only real discussion in the Quran with its Christology, is whether the Quran is monothelite or monoenergist. Monothelitism is definitely Nestorian. Monoenergism is definitely Oriental Orthodoxy, or what they call Miaphysite. So, interestingly enough, you and I would have a lot of things which we agree on, but you and I would probably have a punch-up one day if it comes to discussing, is it monoenergism or is it monothelitism? And then we can get into the real nitty-gritty detail, and I'll be able to bring verses and say, no, it's monoenergism, and no doubt you'll bring verses and say, no, it's monothelitism. But that's the real punch-up, to be honest. That's the only real punch-up with regards to the Quranic Christology. It is absolutely 100% totally correct to say it is a Trinitarian text. It is correct to say, even the Quran says, that God has a son. Inna yakun lahu walid is a verse, it appears a lot. And in modern Arabic, it means just because of convention, just because it's always been taught this way in Arabic schools for 1,300 years or 1,200 years, actually. It's been taught that inna yakun lahu walid means he doesn't have a son. But in Judeo-Arabic, it means he does have a son. It means indeed he has a son. So because the exact words actually mean inna, which is indeed, yakun, there is, lahu, to him, walid, offspring. Indeed, there is to him offspring. That's exact literal translation. As a Quranist, I suppose you accept that rather than the classical Arabic grammar that no, although that's what it says, it doesn't actually mean this. It's a kind of negative meaning. Is that right?
Yeah. So what you are right now talking about. Yeah, go.
Sorry,
Normie wants to jump in. Sorry.
Because I think we're using probably quite a few like big words, and if I get lost, I suppose that people watching are also going to get lost. So may I just make a comment about what we've discussed, and then I'm going to try to get some answers that I think people will understand, and then we pick up the conversation right there. It's a couple of quick things. Is what you guys have said about the the language of the Quran. You're absolutely right. For such a long time, they have told us, you see, when in here it says say not three, that means the Christians are wrong. But now we're really a quarter into the 21st century, and people are really realizing, like, no, hang on a minute, this is actually not what it means. Even someone like Adam Seeker still thinks about the narrative as it is being told, with Muhammad being a false prophet, but he believes in the narrative. And even he realizes, he's been doing shows saying the Quran never attacks the Trinity. He has actually been doing that. It's like it never describes the Trinity, even describes when Allah says to Jesus, did you ask them to take you and your mother as deities apart from me, and things like that. So even he realizes, hang on a minute, the Quran tells a different story. So I think everyone is kind of muddling through and getting closer to the answer, and it comes down to what does the Quran say. And like we've seen here from Murad, and what Norman said is, yeah, absolutely perfect. They do have the words to differentiate between one particular thing and another. So we shouldn't really mix and match and let the tafsir writers tell us what it means. It means what it says, and that's that. Like you don't use the word tawafa next to Jesus if you're going to say that he didn't die. It's
Right.
nonsense, right? But
Right.
the big one as well that you have just mentioned, Joe, is the son. So the problem with Walad and Ibn, and that's why I would like to have a show with you on that one. Basically you, because that goes over my head. But in English, we would always say he didn't have a son, and we use son. But in Arabic, there are two different words, and the
Yep.
Quran always uses one. So how we are deceived because something is lost in the translation?
Well, we are deceived. I mean, just now, for example, you said you and your mother. Actually, the Quran doesn't say that. It says me and my mother. That's what it actually says. So but we are, I suppose, deceived by our, what is it? I don't know. It's entirely the context which is presented to us. I guess the first time we hear something, and it sinks into our subconscious, and that is what we take for granted as being the truth of the matter. But it takes a long time to break that down and say, hold a second. That's not what it says at all. Everybody tells us that it says, Subhanahu inna lakun wa huwa walid means glorified be he beyond that he should ever have a son. Okay, but the wording doesn't say that. It says glorify him because he has a son, or glorify him that he has a son, or glorify him indeed he has a son. And these are the meanings of the word inna, but it's not ever going to be presented to you that way because, as I said, the hegemony of the religion is 2 billion people strong. And that is a very big cult brainwashing to break through. You can't, it is the same as, David Koresh's brainwashed cult at Waco, right? They were very small, but you could not break through their understanding of the Bible to try and talk sense to them. You couldn't do it. They were completely inside of their own little cult, and they had been living in isolation from other humans for such a long time and only bouncing ideas off of each other, that they could not see any other way except the way that David Koresh had introduced to them to understand the Bible. And although they were just a small group of 100-something people in Waco, in Texas, the same mentality is now 2 billion people strong with Islam. It's 2 billion people strong with Christianity. What I try to show on this channel is that both Christianity and Islam have the exact same religious origin in one and the same faith, which I call, for the sake of people to try and go and research it themselves, Noahide Judaism, specifically Messianic Noahide Judaism. It's very difficult to break through that brainwashing. The first thing people think about Jews, of course, is, oh, but wait a second, you hate Arabs and you hate Christians and you are your own religion and all you want to do is occupy the entirety of Palestine and basically rule the world from Jerusalem. And that is, of course, again, the hegemony which has been pushed into people's minds from 2 billion Christians and 2 billion Muslims, and nobody asks. I mean, I was going to say the 14 million Jews, but 14 million is a tiny number. But even if you went to ask one of those 14 million Jews, you're really talking about only 2 million Jews that you can ask who actually understand Judaism. Only 2 million Jews in the world actually understand Judaism. So how are you going to get the opinion of 2 million Jews to be able to come out when the vast majority of Jews haven't got a clue about Judaism? They think it's all about Jewish nationalism, and the hegemony of Judaism is being pushed by 2 billion Christians and 2 billion Muslims. And the same situation goes for the Quranists. I don't know how many Quranists there are in the world. What do you think the number might be, Nermin?
I think there are many more than the statistic shows. I think many people are like subconsciously Quranist. This is illustrated by certain discussions when Muslims try to debate with Christians, and then Christians point out something that is like sensitive or controversial in the hadiths, and then suddenly the Muslim debater goes and says, "Oh, Quran only, Quran only." I believe most Muslims are not aware what is written in the hadith books, and that's why they comfortably say, "Oh, just follow the Quran and the Sunnah." But that book-wise definition of the Sunnah, the Kutub al-Sittah, the six major hadith collections, the majority of Muslims don't read them. And a lot of Muslims that are religious at a common level, like not at a scholarly ulama level, they usually read the Quran. So I think there are many more Quranists than the statistic shows. And you sometimes you can see when it comes to modernization, there are certain tendencies to adapt Quranist views, but it's usually like what I call material Quranism. You know, it's like the material life forces you into a certain doctrinal direction, so to say.
Orthodox Moore says that I'll just read this one as it's relevant to what you just said. He says that the Quranists or Quran alones are larger than people think, and they're still small, but are the fastest growing perspective. Do you agree with that?
I think so. Yeah. And one has to also be careful with the term Quranism, because somebody like me, I hold to this sola Qurana, and I totally like reject the standard Islamic narrative. But there are like also reformers that are Sunni and Shia that are also like very Quran centric, and they're critical towards a lot of the hadith literature and the seerah literature, but they still think some of the hadiths can be filtrated and you can like find the beautiful origins there. So I think it's like a broader group than we think. I just wanted to yeah, absolutely.
If I may just to add to this, I think you're absolutely right about this, and we can see it more particularly when Muslims they never knew about hadiths. The only hadiths they know is whatever they have heard at the mosque from their imams. That's it. So 5 hadiths in their lives. They don't really read them because there is no need for them to do so. But when they realize that there are problems, that hadith contradicts hadiths, then they revert back to, okay, so the book is completely fine, and then we have problems with the hadiths, but that is actually one step towards realizing what is going on. And you, Norman, you are ahead of that curve, going to, okay, but the Quran actually tells a different story. So for the benefit of people watching who maybe are not very familiar with where we stand, is that the Quran mentions the messenger like hundreds of times, the word Allah and his messenger, Allah and the messenger, and so on. And that is always exegeted as, well, that is actually Muhammad in the Hijaz, in Mecca, and so on. Now, people who are familiar with my channel and Joe's channel, of course, they know that that's not what we believe. So from you as a Quranist that went from being Sunni to your position now, when the Quran mentions Allah and his messenger, who do you think that messenger actually is?
So that messenger, that Rasulullah, has often been collapsed into the character called a Nabi. So in the standard Islamic narrative, they collapse them. Okay, what I believe is that you can't collapse them.
Well done, very good.
These two are separate entities. Okay,
excellent.
So the Ar-Rasul, or the Rasulullah, is one entity, and the character called Nabi is another entity. I believe the Nabi entity to be more like the human entity, while I believe the Rasulullah to be more of a non-human entity. Most of the times, at least in the Quran.
Absolutely.
So that's my position, and I can also I can actually prove this from the Quran that it's very problematic to say that the Rasulullah is a human entity. If you go to
yes, let's do that, because He's absolutely right, everybody. He's not. This is not an opinion of some guy who just thinks this. By the way, I should tell everybody, Nermin and I have just met literally about 10 minutes before we went live. Okay, so we've not spoken beforehand. But he's actually speaking from the position of somebody who has researched and understood the language of the Quran here. And that's exactly correct. Rasul, there is no evidence that Rasul refers to a mere human, ever. So please, which verses should we bring up?
If you take Surah 3, so
which translation should we
Ali
use?
Imran, shall we? Shall we compare them? Let's check Baba Shuaib's. So if you take chapter 3, verse, I believe it's 101.
Okay. And if you could get the same ready on Murad's translation while we're waiting, please, JC.
Okay, so if you can make it a bit bigger.
Let's try and get that bigger. 101, here we go.
All right.
How's that?
So you see here, and how could you disbelieve? While I think the translation is good. I don't want to like downplay it. It's a good translation, but I just like that it has this standard Islamic narrative in it, even though it's Quranist. And how could you disbelieve while you are the ones to whom the verses of God are being recited? And here is the key verse. And among you, let me just find it on my iPad so I can read it. I'm getting a bit old, so my vision is getting. It's not that good anymore. So if I have it on my iPad here, exactly, and then it says, look at this. It says, "Fikum, fikum rasuluhu." Okay, which he has translated, and among you is his messenger, right? So it's like among, like if you, Joe, are among me and JC, then you're kind of a human being. You're physically among us.
Yes.
But look what the Arabic actually says. Fikum wa fikum rasuluhu. Okay, and this fikum, it just means in. His messenger is in you.
In you. That's right.
And
that's right.
You can if you go to Saint Mora translation, you will see that he has translated as in you.
Let's get that up. Are we ready with this one?
301?
101. Is this
yeah, exactly. Actually, and how do ye cover while the signs of Allah are being iterated over you, and his messenger is in you.
Yeah, very good.
Ooh, oh no.
Yes, that's the death blow to the concept that Rasul is anything other than something spiritual. It's got to be, as you said, something like this allegory you gave at the beginning of the show with Eddie and Venom, that there is this Venom,
like a non-human
symbiote,
entity, right?
Non-human entity in him, which can take over him, but it's in him. Exactly.
And I want to show you also something. It's like, so I apologize to the viewers if there's too many details, but if you also go to the, to the Ahmad verse, is it like, is it verse 6? Is this chapter 68?
Yeah.
I think it's chapter
might
68,
be 68, yeah,
right?
okay,
The Ahmad verse.
I think it's 13, isn't it? Let's have a look and see.
I am the messenger. Yeah, so that should be.
Sorry, which one is it? Surah 6.
Surah Saf, 61. Sorry, 61.
61.
Verse 61.
Bear with.
61 verse 6, I think it is. I'll find it here quickly. And it's
61:6. Sorry, I got it the other way around. Sorry, too many verses. I'm feeling the pressure. 61:6, of course.
Well, you're talking to a Quranist, so Okay. Let's see here.
What is 61?
Oh, there we go. It's
All
verse
right.
6. 61 verse 6.
So look at this
Is that
beauty
the
if
one?
you have St. Mora's translation that I want to
And
show
when
you
Jesus...
here. And you can also, you can also compare it to Baba Schweib's later, but I just want to show you something very interesting. It says, let's see, وَإِذْ قَالَ عِيسَى ابن مريم يا بني إسرائيل إن رسوله الله إليكم مصدقا لما بين يدي من التوراة ومبشرا برسوله ياتيه من بعد اسمه أحمد فلما جاءهم بالبينات قالوا هذا سحر مبين. So what I want to show you here, look at this here. This messenger, he's not just coming after Isa ibn al-Maryam. He's coming from after me. Do you understand? He's not just coming after him. He's coming from after him. Okay? So he is after him, but he's also from him. So he cannot be a human being. Do you understand?
Yes.
He's from him. So this, so you can see if you look at these verses,
the translation of
Rasulullah is
it says
from
the
believers.
I'll just point out that Murad's honest here, where he says from. But if I just put up the other Quranist, this is the problem of Quranism, is because even though Quranism is growing, these Muslims are people who have come from the hegemony of standard Islamic narrative, and it's very difficult for them to break out of it. Look, it says exactly min ba'di, from after me, but the translation
do you see from
just
in
says
English there.
There's no from in English. The word min is missing. It's missing.
Do you see it?
It's not there. It's not there.
So
it's difficult to break out of that hegemony. Yes, sorry, brother Conan.
Exactly.
Please.
So my point to the viewers here is you can see that the Rasulullah in chapter 3, verse 101 is in the believers, and in chapter 61, verse 6, the Ahmad, that Rasul that is coming after Jesus, is not just after him, it's also from him. Do you understand? That is the Paraclete, that is the Holy Spirit, that is the Rasulullah that is in all believers, and that comes from Jesus. After Jesus has ascended to his Father, the only true God, he leaves something from him after him, which is this Paraclete, which is the Rasulullah. So you can see here, if you go to the nitty-gritty, the devil is in the details, or the absence of details sometimes.
May I actually just show another verse? Actually, I really like this one. I'm using this one a lot because it's one that nobody expects, and it's 58:22. Let's get here. I hope that the translation from Murad helps us. So in here, it's actually when it says about, well, Allah and his messenger, great. But a moment later, it says here that those with them, he has, what is it? Oh, he wrote in their hearts believe and gave them hand by a breath, that is the ruh from him. So you have in this verse that is really just saying this has to be basically Pentecost. This has to be about the Holy Spirit, and directly spirit from him. It's just crazy. The Quran is full of these things. The same with the Sakina, Shekinah, and it appears a lot.
Put that
and
on
they
the
try to
screen
hide
because
it.
it highlights the difference. You've got it there on Murad's. It says again from exactly, but I'll just put the other one to compare. And this is somebody who's trying his best as a Quranist here. And there's that word again, min. You can see it's there, and this time, unlike last time, he has put the word from in, whereas last time he hid it.
There's the min who from him.
So the from is there this time. Yep. Sorry to interrupt you, brother. Please continue.
So I really like this one because it's a verse that pretty much nobody looks into, and it's like, yeah, it says a spirit from, but there are other places as well where ruh, as we discussed and we need to explore, it's probably just hidden through the diacritics, and the spirit appears in a lot more places than we ever expected, and this one is actually just very clear. There is another verse that I need to explore. I can't remember which one it is, where they talk about the ruh, but when you get to the translations, they describe it as revelation, and other tafsir writers, they will say, no, this is Gabriel bringing revelation, when the Arabic only says ruh, just spirit, but they don't like that. So it's super funny.
Yeah. Can I just mention now,
And,
please, sorry to interrupt. May I?
yeah,
Or do you want to? Yeah. So I want to mention that the Arabic word Rasul and the other Arabic word for angels, Malaika, is these two words are two different kinds of angel, and that is what we have in Judaism too, when we distinguish Netiot, which are one kind of angel, from Nifradim, which are another kind of angel. Malaikat are Nifradim. They have been created, and the word Nifrad means that they are separated from the source. They are independent. They are isolated from the source, from the divine source. In other words, they are creations. They are not connected directly to the divine essence. The word netiot means rooted in the divine essence. It has its root in the divine essence. So it is an angelic being, but its root is from the divine essence. And so netiot in Judeo-Arabic is Rasul. Netiot is Rasul, and Nifrad in Judeo-Arabic is Malaikat. So Rasul is another kind of angel. Now in Judeo-Arabic, sorry, I should say in Judaism, the Rasul, therefore, the Netiot, is actually the messianic soul. So what if the Quran is of Judeo-Arabic origin and is a messianic Noahide Judaic text, as opposed to a text of Judaism for Jews? Noahide Judaism is Judaism for non-Jews. You do not have to be circumcised. You do not have to keep the same kosher laws that Jews keep, etc. But it is still Judaism, because people don't really understand a lot of the time that Judaism is a very broad thing with one kind of Judaism only for Jews and another kind of Judaism for everybody else on the planet. So that's what Noahide Judaism is. Hence, you can be critical in Noahide Judaism. You can be critical of certain groups of Jews, as the Quran is, because you, as a Noahide, are not a Jew. So no surprise that the Quran would be criticizing certain groups of Israelite. But the Messiah in Judaism is this Rasul, this Netiot being. So you should expect to see references to Jesus as the Messiah, as the Rasul in the Quran, in the same way that you have verses referring to Muhammad as a Rasul. And there are verses where it uses the exact same language concerning Jesus, and then uses in a different place the word Muhammad instead of Jesus. Mahmed in Judeo-Arabic, just for the audience to catch up, Mahmad is a Judeo-Arabic term, and it's Hebrew, Muhammad in Judeo-Arabic. In Hebrew, this is a term for the divine presence of God which resided in the temple. It is the ultimate treasure of the temple, better than the gold and everything else which is in the temple. The real treasure of the temple is Mahmad, is the divine presence. And this is referred to in the Song of Solomon as Mahamadim in plural form. Mahamadim is a minimum 3, and it's is a term given to the bridegroom, if you like, the bridegroom of Israel. So the Rasul is very much messianic being, which Narmin has said is in his belief is in communion, if you like, with a human being. By the way, Narmin, is it from the point of conception, or later on did he become infused with this spirit?
So if you go by the Quran, it seems to be when this spirit, we could call it the word of God, Kalimat Allah, when it's like tossed into Mary, it's tossed into her. She like receives it, and there at the conception, the human being, the human person, Jesus is created, but he's also like a spirit. But when he ascends to his Father, then he leaves from after him this Paraclete, this Holy Ghost, Holy Spirit, for the people to guide the community until his coming on the.
And there's a verse in the Quran which actually corresponds to this as well. I argue on this channel where I argue that when it says Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, it's actually referring to the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And so Rahim is the Holy Spirit here. So the thing which would really prove this would be if there was a verse in the Quran where the Rasm says that the Rasul is Rahim. And if it says the Rasul is Rahim, then you've got a really solid evidence that the Rasul is an attribute of the divine, Al-Rahim. Would you like to see a verse which says that, or do you know it exists already?
I would say to that a lot of research points to the Basmala being like a Nestorianized version of the Great Commission in Matthew. We actually have some of Nestorius' works, his sermons, that have been translated from Syriac into English. He uses words for Jesus like for the divine person, so to say, not a human person, but for the divine person. He uses a term like God the Word or God the Son. And my hypothesis that this Ar-Rahman is probably God the Word. Do you understand? So and this Rahim God the Holy Ghost in a Nestorianized version of it.
I would present it to you that Rahman is the Son, and Rahim is the Spirit, the Rasul aspect. So the Rahman is if you want to use other Quranic language, Rahman is the begotten and Rahim is the begetter. And Allah is neither the begotten nor the begetter. Lam yalid wa lam yulad. Because that is again Trinitarianism. The Father is not the Son, the Father is not the Spirit, but they are all nevertheless one. So that's also backed up there. There is a verse. What are those two verses in Surah 9 which the submitters say are no longer a part of the Quran? Let me just try and find those two verses.
And actually, if I can just try to, without going through the full argument, trying to actually show that, Rahman is going to be the Son. So I have actually shared a little thing. If you can actually put it on the screen, I can just make the argument very quickly.
Okay, let me get that for you. Where is it? You got this here. This one?
So, yes. So Ar-Rahman in the Quran, let me actually just click. This is how many times it appears in the Quran. We see that from the translation of Saint Murad, he doesn't translate it, which makes it very easy to find. So there are except for the Bismillah, of course, in 113 surahs. So all of the other instances, this is how Ar-Rahman appears, and it is actually not used in these formulas at the end of verses. It's actually very often used in doing things and being given attributes and doing things. Basically, it's used as an actual name. When we see the breakdown of how it is used, in the place where it appears the most, by far, happens to be Surah Miriam. So obviously this is not the full argument, but if we go through the actual verses, we see that they are attaching to Ar-Rahman a lot of things that Christians would attach to Jesus, as opposed to any other part of the Trinity or anything like that. So I think the fact that it appears the most in Surah Miriam, exactly what you would expect it to see, is a great indication that yes, Ar-Rahman was originally understood as being about Jesus.
And it's interesting because
another important historic proof that we have is that the earliest portfolio that we have, like the Birmingham portfolio, is of parts of Surah 19, Al-Maryam. So the earliest portfolio we have, which we can actually carbon date back to the time of this character called the Prophet, the Nabi, at the time that the Quran was written, it actually uses that term, Ar-Rahman.
I think we've got. I think just to be fair, I think we have more than that with the Amr Masjid Codex, which is a bit is in Cairo, a bit is in the Vatican, a bit is in Paris, a bit is in Birmingham, and a bit is in St. Petersburg. But that's a pretty good. It's not complete, but it's quite a lot of the Quran there. But it was the Amr Masjid Codex. People might know it as the Birmingham manuscripts or the Parisian Codex, but it's actually the Amr Masjid Codex, which has been split up into different pieces. So it's a bit more than that. But there is an interesting point that if you try to find any verse in the Quran which says that there is not two God does not have offspring, you will not find any verse in the Quran which says God does not have offspring when it uses the word Allah. However, it does use this phrase that Al-Rahman does not have offspring. Now, if that's referring to Jesus, for example, that makes perfect sense. It's basically arguing against certain Gnostics who believe that Jesus and Mary Magdalene had a child together. And so it would actually be saying, no, he didn't have a child. But that phrase does not occur with Allah. It only occurs with Al-Rahman. So that's quite an interesting fact there as well. I have found, by the way, if I put it on the board, I'll take that one off and put this one on. I have found, share this tab, a passage here which is referring to Rasul as Rahim, as opposed to Rahman, which distinguishes the Rasul from the Son, but actually is rather something else which is in the Son, right? So here's the word Rasul here. The passage is in Surah 9, 1-8. Interestingly enough, this is one of the verses which Rashid Khalifa says he wants to have removed. Well, he's dead now, but he said he wanted to have removed from the Quran this verse. Very interesting.
Yeah, 128 and 129.
Yeah. So it says that there's come to Rasul, and there it is, from among you, min, okay, from among yourselves. Grievous to him is what you suffer. He is concerned over you. To the believers, he is kind. And here's the word. Now, in the translation says Rahimun, which sounds like Rahman. But look at the Rasm. It says Rahim. So the Rasul is the Rahim. And there's your solid there. But you can't find these beautiful treasures if you're just relying on translations or even the diacritical markings. Look, they've stuck here this little symbol on top here. I don't know if you can see my mouse circling. This little symbol is where they get the un from.
Yeah.
But that's a diacritical mark that was inserted 200 years after the Quran was already popular. In the Rasm, it just says Rahim. So it's actually, again, confirming the Rasul is Holy Spirit there.
Exactly. So if without the last diacritic, it would be he is the merciful. He is a Rahim.
He is Rahim.
But when they put the diacritic there, they can translate it as an adjective.
That's right. But this is very critical verse because it shows that the Rasul, every time you say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, you're actually saying in the name of Allah and in the name of Al-Rahman, and we've just identified Al-Rahman as Jesus or the Messiah, and Rahim, which is the Rasul. So the Rasul, so when the Quran is saying obey God and his messengers, this is very important. At the very least, the Quran, with this verse, which is probably why Rashid Khalifa wants to have it removed, with this verse, at the very least, the Quran is binitarian. Binitarian is where you have two in as one rather than three as one. Trinitarian is 3 in 1. Binitarian is 2 in 1. And the Quran is always saying obey God and his Rasul, Allah and Rasul, Allah and Rasul and Rasul all the time. And if Rasul is Rahim, as it says so here, then at the beginning of each verse, when it says Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, it's saying by the name of Allah and something and the Rasul. And already you've got in the Bismillah, you've got very clear reference to binitarianism based on this verse here, Surah 9, if you can read it without the haraka, which we can do. Therefore, logically, when you say the Bismillah, since you are definitely saying by the name of God and something and the Rasul, it's clearly the one in the middle has to be a third kind of the same group. Because we've already got two kinds, which is Allah and the Rasul, in the Bismillah. Do you follow what I'm trying to explain?
Oh yeah. I think also like in translations, this English word begotten, beget, appears a lot.
Sorry,
You know,
can you go to 931 as well? If you can go to 931 as well.
931,
great.
Yeah. I'll stick that on.
So, and that is that English word and its application to the walad word in the Quran is also problematic. I think the easiest thing to do for a Quranic reader is you can actually go to, if you can name these verses the sonship verses, sonship verses about Allah, sonship verses about people like Luqman, sonship verses about Yahud and the Nasara, and just compare the words that are used there. There is actually a difference. You can.
There is difference. There is difference.
Yeah.
Now,
So
JC wants to mention
go...
something. I just want JC to tell me. I put on this on the board here what you wanted, JC.
So this is the very popular verse where it actually says, instead of saying Allah and the Rasul, it says Allah and the Messiah is the one of, they have taken the rabbis and their monks apart as lords, besides Allah and the Messiah. Now, I did actually, I've recorded already a video, a normal video for this one. It will be live at one point this month or next month, going through the tafsirs, and the tafsirs are so much fun because everybody exegete everything up to Allah and then they stop. Everyone is saying they have taken their monks and the rabbis as lords apart from Allah, and then they start talking and talking and talking, and later they will say, oh, and they have done the same with the Messiah. It's like the sentence doesn't end there. So this one gives the game away, and it's just unusual that normally we have the Quran full with Allah and the messenger or his messenger, but this one is almost like the one that they forgot to edit or remove.
The one that they forget to cut out or something like that. Yeah. So now, as a Quranist, certainly, I think that Narmin would object to the idea that the Quran has been edited. Am I right?
I'm also skeptical against the diacritics. So that's
okay.
I have no issues with that.
And with regards to
what about any
what about the question that maybe some actual verses or words entire words have been dropped from the version which we have today?
If there is evidence to it, it's just more exciting. So I have no problem looking at the different qira'ats, and I'm also open to Luxemburg's hypothesis that some words, some letters in Arabic and Syriac look similar. Okay, they look similar in their physical form, but they're different letters in those languages.
Yes.
And
that's Christoph Luxemburg's argument as well.
Yeah, and in the writing and the rewriting of the text, exactly, and the writing and the rewriting of the text, that there has been like a confusion or a mistake there, like he has with the libadun word in the Al-Jinn surah, that the lamb, Arabic lamb, looks a lot like the Syriac ain. So that the word wasn't originally libadun; it was abadun. It's like more of like a worship. So I'm open to that too. I don't have this complexity when it comes to inerrancy and univocality, whether
That's more of
it is the Quran or the
the
Bible.
19ers would be more concerned about that, because that would really break their
Absolutely,
position.
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, great, fantastic. So we've got yes, go on.
May I ask? Yeah, may I add, yes, one little thing. I try to actually. The other thing that I have just shared is just from Shadi Nasser. So he's putting together all of this Qiraat on his website, which is phenomenal, and I think it is very underused resource, and people need to start looking at that, because a lot of the clues are going to be there, particularly when we go to the 7 readings and the 14 readings. When we're trying to read the Quran now, we have basically the Hafs version. Everybody uses the Hafs, but maybe is another reading that actually revealed the mystery. So this thing has to be investigated. I just wanted to actually bring this up because it's a great resource, and I think people who are doing any studies on the Quran, they should really start looking at this in a lot of detail. This one here, because you mentioned about the Mahmad thing. So this one is from a Shia reading here. So when we click on the word of Muhammad, we see the Shia reading. Obviously, we don't have it. Is somebody saying how it used to actually be written according to them, and there was this fi thing. So Muhammad fi Ali. So I don't know if this has any clues. We know that Ali is as well another divine title. This could have been the Shias just saying, no, trust me, it used to actually talk about Ali, but maybe it has a little bit of truth, and the Qiraat are full of these things.
In light of all of this, I agree. I have always argued, I hope that Nariman won't find this offensive, but I've always argued that what we call the spiritual Shia, the Alevis, the Aliens, the ones that they were trying to obliterate in Syria, are actually the ones who have the truth. These are the ones that, of course, the Islamic State, the ISIS, the Daesh in Raqqa, were trying to eliminate, and whose welfare I'm very concerned about after Assad has been taken out of power. Assad was one of them, and as one of them, he actually was protecting them in Syria at that time. Now that he's gone, there's no protection for these people, and worse than that, because Assad was extremely unpopular and was regarded as a tyrant, a lot of the Muslims in Syria are taking their aggression against Assad, who is out of the picture. They're taking their aggression out on the aliens or the Alawis right now, which is terribly sad. Likewise, Erdogan in Turkey hates these people as well. They call them Alevis in Turkey, and they're killing them left, right, and center. In Turkey, they actually put crosses on their doors, and they'll have militias drive through the streets and shoot at the houses which have been marked with the crosses, and then the police will come along and try and investigate and say, oh, we have no idea who did this. And that's basically what's going on right now. So I do believe that the spiritual Shia have got something serious, which is constantly being covered up and hidden from public eye. And it's weird how the media will not mention that. It's interesting how the media nearly wanted to gloss over the Venezuela business recently as well, until there was too much protest and they had to do something about that. You had Starmer and what's his name, Macron, saying nothing about it on the first day that it happened, and then gradually, as the media's pressure is building up, then they're coming out and saying something. But essentially, if the people don't make a big enough fuss about something, it will not get into the media. Even if we are making a big enough fuss about something, sometimes it just doesn't get into the media, and nobody will know about these things. They want to direct our attention to sometimes the most banal things, and we don't really hear what's going on. The news is no longer the news.
There is a Arabic channel by a professor called Mr. Sami Al-Deeb, and he talks a lot about what's happening to the Alawites in Syria and their situation.
He was involved in the rope as well with the early days of Inara. He was one of them at that time.
Exactly. And
how do you know? Unless you were one of us. Well, horrible. You must have been there.
I
always thought that
bit
Murad
younger
was one
than
of
that.
us.
Sorry.
You're too young. Murad said he was too young as well. But it's
Yeah,
almost
yeah.
as if sometimes I thought to myself, Murad, you're saying some things which were discussed on the rope, and Adib is actually also one of those as well. Can I just bring up this before we move on too far? Orthodox Moore says, I would argue that it's tri-Unitarian, but you already know my argument for the triune shahadats found in the Quran. Surah 2, verse 255, sorry,
Yeah, I
and
think.
Surah 3, verse 2.
Yeah, I agree with Orthodox more. That's what I was trying to say. Like,
Yes.
Nestorianism is a sort of like a path between what we know as traditional Chalcedonian Nestorianism and what we think of as Socinian Unitarianism, which has its origins with Paul of Samosata, was also from Syria.
That was
So
from Inara as
traditional,
well.
yeah. If you take
Thomas Alexander also
researcher,
argues this. I will just say that the position of Inara jumping onto the Islam, I would say there is a difference between Islam and the Quran. As I say, we'll get into. He's joined us. Shalom Moore, good to see you here. Thank you for joining us. Alechem shalom. So I'll just finish my sentence. So there is evidence to suggest that the Quran actually is more on the Miaphysite side of things than the Nestorian side of things. But bear in mind that the Nestorians came into the Oriental Orthodox community in the year 1145. So in the end, whatever arguments they had against each other was decided to be not so important. Timothy of Baghdad was a monothelite, and the other Oriental Orthodox are monoenergists. And Heraclius, who was the emperor of Rome, abandoned Chalcedony first for monoenergism when he was invading and conquering Khosrau, and then as soon as he had conquered, he changed monoenergism for monothelitism. And there is an argument. There's a solid, good argument. I would like to avoid giving one side too much in this, just to let people know that there are two sides of that coin. So I would say that that was a mistake of Inara.
One other thing, Joe. When you read through some of the Inara work, if you go through what's this dude called, Thomas, who has his own
Thomas
YouTube
Alexander?
channel. He's a German program.
Yeah,
Thomas.
Yeah, he's a terrible anti-Semite.
No, I don't think so. No. He just focuses on the
You should
Quranic
see
research.
the.
I think
I have a whole dossier of
Thomas Alexander.
Thomas Alexander. I have a whole dossier of screenshots of comments that he made towards me.
Okay. I haven't seen that.
No,
but,
nobody has.
People like him, and
Please, Sam.
if you take a researcher like Neil Hampson, he has his own YouTube channel as well. He's also a researcher. They are a lot on that they want to trace the origins of the Quran to Paul Samosata, and they also want to trace it to the people who lost in Nicaea in 325, to the Arians, and also to those who lost in 381 to Eunomius faction. But the thing is, what I'm suggesting is that the Quran traces its back to the winners, those that won at 381. But then after 381, there is sort of like a mutation happening, because Nestorius himself was a full-fledged Trinitarian. Okay, so he was more in line with the teachings of Gregory and Nyssa, like a sort of radical Trinitarianism, where the Godhead, when it comes to the operations in creation, it acts with one will, one action. You can't like differentiate the persons in that way. So what Nestorius holds to the Trinity. He holds to that doctrine when it comes to God, that the only true God is the Father Almighty, but that he is a causing God. He causes another person, God the Son. But what disturbed Nestorius a lot was that if you would point, when Mary is giving birth to Jesus, the human person, what disturbed Nestorius was if people would point at that action happening, and they would say, "Oh, it's God being birthed," and that's what disturbed Nestorius. He was saying that the Godhead cannot be birthed, and he actually, what his beliefs are a logical consequence of Gregory of Nyssa's view of the Trinity, because what Gregory of Nyssa says in his book on Not Three Gods, he says that the Godhead, you can't circumvent the Godhead, and you can't divide the Godhead. Okay, so if me and you are riding a bicycle, we're doing one action. Okay, but we can be circumvented and we can be divided, but the Godhead cannot be divided. So logically, Nestorius was like, if you point at a human being, Jesus, he can be circumvented, right? People can stand around him, and he can also be divided, like he was on the cross, right? He was punctured and they put nails, etc. So that cannot be the Godhead. That has to be the human person, and so that's why he's going more for like the union. So I understand the Orthodox more position that it's really hard to say Trinitarian or Unitarian. I think it's more like Nestorian position, like somewhere in between. So to say.
I think that there's the division between a Trinitarian and Unitarian is sophistry. I think at the end of the day, if you actually talk about the nature itself, I think you'll find much more agreement between Trinitarians and Unitarians than is allowed in text. I think most of the time in academic texts, there is a hegemony of one large church trying to make sure that anybody who says anything which might be threatening to their doctrine must be silenced and dismissed and cut out as a heretic. And so most of the arguments against Unitarians, for example, are written by Trinitarians of that large church, trying to control the narrative and control the ideas, and to present almost like a straw man argument against the Trinitarian position. And then you get the opposite happening, of course, with Unitarians responding in anger and arguing back, and the polarization becomes worse and worse and worse. But fundamentally, Unitarians believe that God is one essence, one nature, one person, and the Trinitarians would say also, yes, God is one essence, one nature. They just say personas instead, and that persona argument is where I think a Unitarian would say, yes, God has definitely got different personas, but not different persons, and that is where you get a big conflict going on. But Orthodox Moor, you are a tri-Unitarian, so what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you in the sense that I think that a lot of people talk past each other, and I think it all comes down to like whether you have a subordinationist view of things or not. But real quick, because I might have to jump off real soon. Have you done any word study comparisons on, or been able to connect to like I was saying earlier about my argument about the triune shahadas, where it says have you been able to link up El Qayyum and El Hayyu to Rahman Rahim?
Are you asking me or no?
Anybody?
Let's open up a verse. Can you bring one? I've got the Quran.
Sure, 3:2 or 2:255.
Okay, let's put it up. Let's do the 2:55 and 3:2 you mentioned. Yeah, okay, good. Let's do 2:55 first. Is it 2:55, right?
Yeah, 2:55. Yeah, 2:55.
Yeah. Let's get that on that. Okay, so now explain the verse. Allah, there's no God except Him, the ever-living, the sustainer of all that exists. Not overtakes Him slumber does not overtake Him, and not sleep. To Him belongs whatever is in the heavens and the earth. And who is the one who can intercede with Him except by His permission? He knows what is before them and what is behind them, and they do not encompass anything of His knowledge except of what He wills. And His throne extends to the heavens and the earth, and does not tire, guarding both of them. And He is the most high, the most great. Okay, it's a beautiful verse.
Yeah, it says very similar thing in 3 too. But basically, like there's like at the first part of the verse, if you scroll back up to the top, it says Allah la ilaha illahu al-hayyu al-qayyum. So it's basically there is no Allah, and then there is no God, but He, the ever living, the sustainer. Right. So
and it got
two
that
names
3.
of Allah.
Who?
Yeah,
1, 2,
exactly.
1,
Right.
2, 3. And let's go to 3 verse 2. It always has that. Interesting. Let's go to 3 verse 2. And it's down here.
Mm-hmm.
First verse is Aleph Lam Mim. And God, there is no God except Him. Again, the ever living, the sustainer of all things. Again, that's like a 3 in 1. So now so you're wanting to know, have we connected Hayu and Qayyum to Al-Rahman Ar-Rahim? I haven't looked at that yet. Has anybody else looked at that?
Am I right in thinking that that word that they translate as the sustainer of, sorry, it's a little bit small, of all that exists, isn't that the same word as resurrection? I think there is one of these attributes of Allah that they translate literally,
resurrection.
but it means the resurrected. Can't
Yeah.
remember if it's this one.
Yeah, you're right. Look, there it is.
Yeah. So there you go.
Then
Resurrected.
I am the resurrection of light. Right. So that would be Jesus then, wouldn't it? Is that right?
And so I make the argument that Huwa al-Hayyu is like the Arabic form of like Yote Wahe backwards, right? You even see there's a verse. There's
the living God. The living God is the Holy Spirit. So there, it's quite straightforward actually. If Jesus is the resurrection, Haya is life, the Spirit, then you again have a reference to the Father, the Son, and Holy Spirit right there.
I have I think the Orthodox more, if you try to get the book, and I think there is this book online. It's a book written by Gregory of Nyssa. The book is called On Not Three Gods, where Gregory of Nyssa is making a response to Eunomius, who claims that the Trinity basically is like 3 gods. So he wants to explain why the Godhead is not 3 gods. And what you could do is, like, if you take chapter 2, verse 255 in the Quran and try to like substitute the word Allah for Gregory of Nyssa's notion of the Godhead. So you can see here that this about sleep not overtaking him, he cannot be encompassed. It's precisely what Gregory of Nyssa is talking about when it comes to the Godhead, that it can't be circumvented and it can't be divided. So that is the divinity, and So the Quran is pointing to that divinity, that Godhead. Just like if you can also compare Nestorius sermons, he's pointing a lot to that divinity, but it doesn't mean he's not rejecting the 3 persons. He's not rejecting that God the Father, the only true God, is regenerating another person. He's just saying that the Godhead is working in unison, especially when it comes to the will and one activity in the operations of creation. And the reason why it's not 3 gods is because the Godhead cannot be circumvented and it cannot be divided. It's one in action and it's one in will. Hence, it is one Godhead. And this is what these verses are also trying to describe when it comes to the Godhead.
May I just give a very, very unpopular opinion? I am sorry about this. Is that at this point, I wouldn't actually be very sure if the Quran actually contained one belief or if it had multiple ones, and they kind of got a little bit merged. That's why you can find verses that they seem to contradict each other in terms of belief. For example, you have the birth of Jesus, which seems to be taken from the infancy gospel, but then you get to Surah 97, and it is very Ephraim, the Syriac. So it's like you have 2 very different beliefs in there. Now, as we explore more, it's possible that the core of the Quran was very much like Nestorianism, but then by the time that they are putting everything together, they realize the book is too small, and then they have to copy and paste from other places. So maybe there's only one belief, but at this point, I would put a question mark and say, hey, guys, maybe they have multiple beliefs into one because of the process of canonization and doing all of that. And I've shared something that I think hopefully you guys will find interesting as well. I think it's on topic. If Joe can actually, yes. So this one in Surah 90, so there is this from Murad translated as, and a male birther and what he has birthed, or by the begetter and what he begets, something like that. But then if we get
to interesting,
the
male birther is so important and interesting because males do not give birth.
Yeah.
Wait. And this is the thing here. And JC is onto something. Yeah. A male birther does not give birth. Listen to this. A male birther does not give birth, but a male conceives.
But the Holy Spirit is referred to as male and is referred to in the Bible as the begetter.
The conceiver.
Yeah. And we see that,
the one who, go on, JC.
And because we have these, now that we start to understand the Quran and we see that it's not the standard Islamic narrative, we can start to ask the question, hang on a minute, if now we know that this was very Judeo-Christian, what did this mean? But now look at this, I'm going to just share something else, and this is just the translations, so nothing too fancy, but just let me just share the correct tab. There we have it. So this is simply just really the translations. So we see how they are going to say, and the parent and the offspring by the father and him who he begot. Okay, but look at this now. We have Ahmad Khan who says, the forefather, Ibrahim, and by you, his illustrious son. Is like, okay, so the father, the begetter is Ibrahim. When we check just a little bit, by the way,
I mean, you got the spirit of the whole of the Quran is swearing by Abraham. That means Abraham is higher than the spirit that's reciting the Quran, because you cannot swear by something which is lower than you, right? You have to swear by something which is higher than you. So it's a bit odd.
That's a paradox / contradiction.
and in here as well, so we have Abraham and Ishmael. So we know now by these translators who it is, but what is it? What is? Did I miss it? Yes, Adam. So basically, they are trying to understand. They are trying to. It cannot be the Father and the Son, and it cannot be the Spirit and the Word. It cannot be anything of the sort.
No,
so you have people saying it has to be someone else.
The more logical one here is Adam and that which we got, because at least Adam is the birther of all mankind. Even Eve comes from him, according to the story, right? Eve comes from Adam's rib, right? So Adam is better than Abraham, but still the best is Adam Kadmon, who is the archetypal human, who is actually hermaphrodite, referred to as he, so then you can use masculine words, but is actually the birther as well. And Adam Kadmon is the Holy Spirit. So now what we've talked about with Neriman here, we've gone a lot on the church fathers and the Inara position and Nestorianism and blah, 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 blah. And we haven't explained Inara at the end of the day is, and I met these people, I work with these people, these founders are anti-Semites. They don't like Jews, they don't like Judaism. They try to find a non-Jewish solution, which is why the whole rope business fell apart, because some people are arguing, look, you can't deny that there are direct quotations in the Quran from the Talmud. The Talmud is directly quoted many times in the Quran. So you can't
and Jewish Apocrypha as well.
Right. So you can't hide from that. That's something which Inara doesn't go into. They don't talk about the quotation. I mean, there's not even one article, I think, on the Inara website, correct me if I'm wrong, Nariman, where they actually talk about Talmudic quotations in the Quran, is there?
I don't believe so. I have the newest. I just got it 2 weeks ago. The newest like book symposium of articles.
They always gloss over it. They want to argue that it's completely from a Christian origin, and that's unfortunately because of an anti-Semitism which is inherent in certain Germanic, I should say certain German authors, and there's a history behind that. But
Wellhausen was a famous anti-Semite, for example.
Yeah,
the one that came out with the documentary hypothesis.
I would say, by the way, that anyone who would try to pin the origins of Islam to their own groups are fools, because things didn't go too well. So
I am that
more
fool.
Sense. You know,
I will say,
but
I will say
for
that
me,
I am that fool. But
you know what I mean. For
the,
me, it's
the
about
argument,
what it
the
meant.
argument,
If I may,
what I'm
that
trying to say is that there is more to it than just one. It's not just Nara touches on so many great points, but we are arguing from the 20th century about people like Paul of Samosata, who was a 3rd century person before the Council of Nicaea. You see what I mean? And we project back in time a lot. You know, he could well have been a Paulician. So it's very difficult. We want to. Okay, see you, Orthodox More. Thanks for joining in. God bless you. Take care. So it's not right to try and polarize these things. Rather, we should try and get around and see, well, what is it that we all, what is the picture coming to? Now, JC, you said that it's not surprising to see contradictory beliefs in the Quran, so we shouldn't worry about that so much. I believe that it was, as Leo the Isaurian says, the Byzantine emperor, after speaking with the Paulicians, he says it was authored by 3 people. That is Solomon the Pharisee, Abu Turab, Ali, and an emir. And it could be that this was an attempt to fuse together different beliefs. I'm sorry, Nermin, if we speak as like non-believers for a moment, just from a completely secular sort of historical analysis.
No worries. I have tough skin.
Okay, so it's not surprising that we should see at least 3 different positions in the Quran. But I think that there was a conscious effort to try and blend those positions. JC, sorry to interrupt you. Now, please continue.
JC, I want to strengthen your argument a bit. In Surah
let me just,
Luqman.
Yeah, sorry, if I can just actually finishing this thing like with the political thing. So I find it interesting, like sometimes if I show things on my channel, like, oh look, these things are coming from the Talmud, I will have people going and says, don't try to pin it on the Jews. Okay, if I say things about Christianity, don't pin it on Christianity. And he's like, guys, I'm trying to understand what happened 1400 years ago. Let me
put this. I don't mind you pinning it on the Jews, as long as we're not attacking attacking the Quran and saying that, oh, look how evil the whole thing is, and the whole thing's written by Satan, blah 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 blah. But what I don't like is somebody to pin it on the Jews and then the same sentence to say Allah is Satan, for example. It's like, now that's really anti-Semitic. But if you want to say, okay, this was an attempt by the Jews to create a form of or to push out messianic Noahites, okay. Judaism for non-Jews who believed in Jesus as the Messiah, that's not offensive, as long as we are also saying that this is not a divine revelation from God, but is actually a conscious effort to try and make peace between different groups. Yeah, no problem. Put it on the Jews. But if you're going to say, no, this is a demonic revelation from Satan, blah, 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 and the Jews behind it, then, clearly that is offensive, right?
Yeah, well, yes, I would say that. For me, I see that whatever the intentions, and the intentions with most of these things were very likely very, very good intentions that then went very wrong when it got in the hands in the wrong people. That's why when we see even pseudo gospels and stuff, they're trying to be nice when they're saying, oh, Jesus didn't suffer on the cross. And it's like, well, you can see why they would say that. They don't want Jesus to suffer on the cross, and then things go pear-shaped, But for me is, if these people believe that Jesus was the flying spaghetti monster, that we would say, hey, this is what the Quran says. Whatever the original movement was, this is not what we have now. And it's not about pinning it on people. Whoever started this, it went really, really wrong for everybody.
It went wrong.
And
that's fair enough to say.
Yeah,
I think even Nermin will agree that it went wrong, didn't it, somewhere along the line? Some people got the wrong end of the stick, right?
Oh yeah, human nature, unfortunately. And if you believe in Satan, Satan gets his fingers meddled in the human business, and unfortunately, the human being tends to fall into the trap. All groups do, unfortunately. So we definitely have to approach it with JC's humble position. This is also why I used to really believe in this concept of inerrancy and univocality, and I tried to judge scriptures based on this, like, is it inerrant, is it univocal, etc. But then I realized, like, I don't know, it wasn't realistic, and then I have such the human race has disappointed me so much, so that I don't feel this need to look for this inerrancy and univocality anymore in scriptures. I have started more believing in the efficiency of scripture. What is like the most efficient reading, most efficient interpretation, whether it's historically or how you want to apply it in your life.
Yeah, I see the Quran. I don't know if JC told you about this or not, but I see it as what we call like divine theater or theological sort of drama, prose and like not poetry but prose readings and recitations and performances which were done in public to encourage people to become believers and to be interested in the stories of the previous scriptures, mainly the Bible, the Christian Bible, and in that sense, I see it as worthy as the attempt of people like Dallas Jenkins and his new The Chosen TV show, where he has completely written his own interpretation. And it's not, when you're watching the TV show The Chosen about Jesus and the disciples, you're not watching the Gospels, you're not watching the Bible, you're not watching anything which is recognizable, really. Very, very little of it is recognizable if you were to read the Bible. But it is entertaining and it is theological it's a low theology, but it's a theological attempt, and it's Dallas Jenkins' position, and it is his work inspired by the Bible, intended to get people interested in the Bible. And I think the Quran is exactly the same. It's an attempt of 7th century attempt to do very much the same sort of thing that Dallas Jenkins is doing, and it's worthy to explore its theological positions and its Christological positions and its attempts to address the big questions. Look, at the end of the day, The Chosen makes exactly the same sort of mistakes. Dallas Jenkins is not a deep theologian. He hasn't got a degree and is not recognized as a wonderful theologian by any church out there. And yet he's just expressing his views, and he touches on theological issues, and sometimes he hits the nail on the head, and sometimes he's way off base and is actually committing heresy in the process. He's actually creating heretical positions. Now, if people one day in the future decide that the Chosen TV series is the divine revelation from God's last prophet, Dallas Jenkins, they will be led astray. But if they say, look, Dallas Jenkins was trying to point us towards something else, and there's a lot of good arguments in here, but sometimes it was expressed very well, and sometimes it wasn't expressed very well and actually verges on heresy or is even heresy, then they would be reflecting on Dallas Jenkins' attempt correctly. And that's I think, how we should. This is, I'm not asking you to agree with me, but when I say we, I'm saying, but I'm just saying this. That's how I feel we should approach the Quran as a 7th century attempt at the same sort of thing. It was well intentioned. It's not perfect. It's very interesting, and it's worthy of investigation and discussion. And we do need to point out, not like making fun of the author, but say, look, the author made a clear mistake here. I'm not asking you to agree with me. The author made a clear mistake here, which has led to heretical beliefs. If only they had chosen their words more carefully, then that such a belief would not have emerged, and we wouldn't have had so many dead people as a result of it through history. But we can use the same words against verses in Judaism and verses in Christianity as well. I would say less so the verses in Christianity. The Christian verses are pretty much free from criticism that way. The problem in Christianity is their priests, their pastors, and their teachers, and their kings, and their lords, who controlled the narrative for such a long time throughout the history of Europe, and were able to get Christians to slaughter each other in the name of God, because those Christians were ignorant of the Bible. And frankly speaking, Christians are generally incredibly ignorant of the Bible even today. But so from a Jewish position, it's quite interesting. I'll defend the best of the scriptures where it comes to phrasing it right so that it can't be misunderstood. It's probably the Christian scriptures. Jewish scriptures, not so much. That's why you have to have tons and tons of Talmud to explain it. And a Quran too, but it's a really interesting attempt. And I think that's how we should look at these things, not with hatred and fear and anger, but with a calm, rational mind, looking at attempts of people in the past to convey theological concepts and Christological concepts. Maybe they did well and maybe they didn't do well. So yeah, I think that was inspired by what you said about efficiency there, Nariman, and I hope I haven't said anything offensive in the process.
No, I believe you're onto something there, because it's quite evident that Quran doesn't restrict itself to canonical biblical material. It goes to the Apocrypha. It goes to even quotes like the Jewish Talmud. We have Brother Shai that has done. He has a channel called Jew Reading the Quran, and he has been on JC's show. So the reason why the Quran is like using so many sources is probably because it wants to revive this Rasulullah that is within us. It probably considers that the Rasulullah has sort of like faded away, that it has sort of like died within the people, that the people are so lost that the Rasulullah that is within us has to be like revived so that we become better believers and build a better world. And as you also said, there is, in the world of apologetics, people tend to take Quranic truths and biblical truths, and they tend to put them in the same category as historical truths that are derived using the historical critical method, and that becomes a problem. I think one who was really good at distinguishing these two was a Yale professor who has passed away. His name was Dale B. Martin, and he has a whole lecture series on YouTube on the origins of the New Testament. And he was I think an Anglican. That was his Christian denomination, Anglican. Yeah, I think it was Anglican. And he's really good at differentiating these historical truths, which he derived as a professor, but also like these biblical truths that he went beyond history in how he should approach God and the divine and the truths that give us like the real food for life, the inner food for life. So I think you're onto something.
Thank you.
But the apologetic scene is a lot about inerrancy. You have to prove who has the inerrant scripture, and it will always be messy, always be like a fight, because it's a fight over believers, over followers, over souls. So
you see what JC's put up here? This is good. Actually, we should promote this on our channel. The Promised Land. Have you watched this? Has anybody watched this? If you've watched this, please tell us in the comments. When it comes to Dallas Jenkins' approach to The Chosen versus, I can't remember who the director is or the creator of this is, but The Promised Land, I would choose The Promised Land over The Chosen. It's much more honest. I think it's much more honest. It's much more entertaining, and I don't find it offensive at all. You can say it's actually made by mostly Arabic actors, mostly ex-Muslim or Christian Arabs, and it could be taken as extremely offensive against Moses, but I think it's hilarious. I think it's wonderful. I don't find anything problematic about that. I just wish that there could be Muslims out there who would find something like this about Muhammad and wouldn't be offended in the same way that a Jew cannot be offended as I'm a Jew and not offended by the Promised Land. I find it very, very entertaining and probably quite honest. I like that. And I hope that everybody will watch this and give it a chance and like and subscribe to the Promised Land. Actually, not affiliated with this channel at all, but I just think it's well worth supporting that project. And maybe we should do something similar with the Quran.
Certainly, sooner or later, that needs to happen. With this show, The Promised Land, is when you see The Chosen, which is a very, very good show, and they try to do it like, obviously, the whole seriousness of what was going on. But The Promised Land is not. They actually try to have it all very, very comedic approach. The actors keep basically doing interviews to the camera, which is of course nonsense when you're thinking the time period. But it's so good. I found it to be very, very good show, and it obviously doesn't get the same views as The Chosen. It doesn't have that same marketing machine behind and all of that. But it's a lot of fun. I really recommend people to watch it. It's really good.
It's really very good. And have you watched it, Narmin?
No.
You should, and
Sorry.
Orthodox more. You too.
I
You should
should.
definitely get into that and catch up. Bear in mind, it might be considered extremely offensive because if you are being too serious about religion, but I don't think we should ever be serious about religion. Being too serious about religion has caused far too many deaths throughout history. And I think it's time to change our attitude towards it all, to be honest. If the religion is strong, it will not be damaged by somebody taking a poke at it, and making fun a little bit. If a religion has got something to offer, something true to say, then the truth will not be damaged by people making a satirical presentation of it. And in fact, I think that the people who do the Promised Land are very sensitive because they do actually manage to get across spiritual and religious lessons. A nice juxtaposition between comedy and seriousness, but it's mostly comedy, and I think that's really where we should be trying to aim with our understanding of religious scriptures. I find that there is a lot of comedy in the Quran, but I'm reading it in Judeo-Arabic, not with classical Arabic. But I find that there's a lot of comedy in that.
The comedy aspect is really it's under researched, definitely.
It's under researched.
It does. There is a verse in the Quran that talks about like those who laugh last during the end days, those who laugh at their mockers, because they will be the ones that will end up in paradise. So and what JC has shown about the hadiths as well, it feels like, it feels like reading satirical religious books.
It really is. Yeah, it really is. I think the way that a lot of the comedy is presented is to make it angry and shouty, which makes it rhetorical rather than actually. You know what? You don't have to read it that way. You can read it a very different way. The passage about Alexander in the Quran. Murad, I think, agrees with me. If I remember our conversation, we have to get him on the show one day so we can talk about it together. But there is a passage about Alexander the Great in the Quran, and it actually is mocking him. But the way it's presented is as if he's so great, and it's a very serious word. It depends on the interpretation of one word. We have to get Murad on. One word changes the whole meaning of the whole passage, and it's actually means that they're mocking Alexander, and they're not taking the side of Alexander, but it's making fun of the story that he went across the world. The attitude that the Quran is a flat Earth book, is completely undermined depending on how you interpret this one word. If you interpret this one word another way, they're making fun of the idea that he found the sun setting in a pool of mud, and then it's actually mocking the whole story, and it's comedy. But you can imagine that would have looked very funny to people who were, at the end of the day, part of the Persian Empire and no fans of Alexander the Great. Why is Alexander the Great relevant at that time? Because Alexander the Great united the Greek Empire and the Persian Empire under himself as one person. This was only done by Alexander the Great, and Heraclius is the only other person who did it. When Heraclius did it, he sort of abdicated and appointed somebody else to be Shahanshah over Persia instead of himself. That was Kavod II. He put him in charge instead. And so it was relevant to sort of making fun of Alexander the Great is sort of another way of making fun of Heraclius, who was doing the same thing that Alexander the Great did at that time. So historical context, as I said, these things have to be researched, looking into it and seeing exactly what were they saying, and were they fans of Heraclius, or were they sort of making fun of his ambition and using Alexander as an example to make fun of his ambition, things like that. These things have to be researched much more.
Comedy cannot have started in like the modern age. It has to always have been there with the human race. It's like our way of handling real life situations by sometimes just laughing at it. There is also, do you remember the story of Sheba in the Quran when she's like uncovers she's standing on that in that glass house and uncovers like she has to lift her dress because she thinks it's water, and then she uncovers her leg. And we had brother Shai, a Jew reading the Quran. He was on JC's show, and he was reading this apocrypha about Jewish apocrypha about Solomon and
Sheba.
and Sheba, and how in the Jewish apocrypha, she actually, when she uncovers her leg, the legs are hairy, to like and that is comedy to illustrate
that's
that,
right.
like, things are always greener. Things are always greener on the other side. You always think that it's so bad with you, but you have to like sometimes lift the cover and check, and you can see that
and then the truth
so
is
you're
exposed.
onto something, definitely.
I think
wish,
there's a lot of it.
I wish generally, like, why we're doing all this, I just wish Muslims would read more. They will read the Bible more, the Apocrypha more, even like the Sunnis' own Hadith and the Shia's Hadith corpus, that they would just see the material there and just start thinking about it like more freely. I think that is what would bring
I
about
think the thing
truly
that concerns people is
revolution
it feels comfortable for somebody to say, "Oh yeah, I understand spirituality. It's in that book on my shelf there. I've covered it," because it's it's a universe of things out there. There's so much to explore. Every single rock you pick up underneath, there's a whole new encyclopedia of things that you have to learn about. Whatever it is, wherever you look, wherever you go, there's just more and more and more and more, and it can be extremely daunting for people. I don't know if anybody knows, I'm on the autistic spectrum, but religion actually helped me come out of that, I suppose, in the way that I can have these conversations, because I'm actually severely autistic. But especially for autistic people, I don't know if you've ever seen this film, The Legend of 1900. It was about a boy who was born on a ship in the year 1900, and he became a fantastic pianist. And one day he had to leave the ship because the ship was being decommissioned, and he saw the New York, and it was too much. It was too big, and he decided he could not leave the ship. He had to stay inside of the ship because he was a genius pianist, and he understood 88 keys on the piano. The 88 keys on the piano was his universe, and he could do everything with those 88 keys. But when he saw how big the real world, and he'd grown up on a ship, when he saw how big the real world was, it terrified him, and he could not get out of the ship to leave and explore it. That's a very autistic sort of position. We have something which we are interested in, and that's our world, our universe. But when we realize how big the whole universe really is, it can be very terrifying. And I think a lot of people may be autistic minded because they say that all men are on the autistic spectrum somewhere. It could be very daunting for them to think about and to see how much there is to study. Oh, grief, I have to study the Talmud. Oh, I have to study the church fathers and Nestorianism and the argument between Nestorians and the tritheists and the Gnostics and the Chalcedonians. And oh my goodness, I thought that the Quran was just sufficient, and now I have to have a big context to be able to understand the Quran. Now I can't even trust a translation. Now I have to learn Arabic. Now I have to learn that not all of these words are Arabic, but some of them are Syriac. And now I've got to learn about the Syriac alphabet as well to be able to understand some of these letters. It's just too much. It's too terrifying, and it's too much. And I think the response to anything, an ignorant response, but not necessarily always ignorant, sometimes an autistic response, is that's outside of my world, my experience, what I want, what I need. The ignorance will be, I don't need to know any of that. The autistic position is, that's terrifying. So
like outside it's outside the comfort zone, right?
It's very much outside the comfort zone. I think ignorance is always a response.
That spectrum, like one strength of people who have autism is that they can store a lot of information, and they're good at that. But when it comes to the filtration, then it becomes like chaos. And in today's information world, we're like overwhelmed with info and even knowledge, so we kind of have to filtrate. And I think that's okay, because human beings, we do survive not only by learning, we also survive by forgetting. We also survive by filtrating.
Oh yes.
So it's okay to make like some sort of filtration, but I think also sometimes knowledge it can revive something in us. Just knowledge by itself can actually revive like our spirituality as well. Like if you would ask me about the resurrection of Maryam, like was it supernatural? Would you say that resurrection was supernatural? Did it go against the laws of this universe? And I would say that what we today know about our entire universe is like a couple of percent. Like over 90% of the existing universe is this what physicists call the dark energy. Okay, and that's like over 90% of the universe, and we have no idea what that is. So for me, the resurrection is not something supernatural. It was something real, something that happened, but it's just that we don't have all the knowledge of this universe, especially that's over 90%, which is dark energy. So we just can't understand it, and we're forced to believe. But probably if we had more knowledge, it would make sense to us. So everything we learn, etc., it can, if it's qualitative, it can revive something in us. But we just kind of have to be honest, just like Dale B. Martin was. Okay, there are these historical truths, and there's one method of applying that, and one use when it comes to that. And there are these biblical / Quranic truths where you use like another method, and you have other uses. And just be honest about that. That's it.
Very good, very good. JC, I noticed you put something up. Do you want me to put that on the screen?
Yeah, I had just removed it because I was sharing the audio as well, so that would be feedback. So it was my bad. So because we were talking about movies and stuff, so just a little while ago, I noticed that there was this animation movie about the life of Muhammad. So I thought, oh, let's give it a shot. That's actually for everybody, but particularly kids, is animation. Can you guess what things about the life of Muhammad don't appear in that movie?
Oh, all of those.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So it's a sanitized.
Was this the movie that
Syrah.
you analyzed, JC? Was this the one that you made a video about?
Yeah, I made a video about it because it was incredibly funny. I mean, I knew they were not going to put things like Aisha and things like this, but the interesting thing is the whole thing about Gabriel appears once at the beginning of the movie, and then that's it. There is no Gabriel or Jibril or Spirit during the movie. There is no Quran in the movie, and there is no Muhammad in the movie. There is nothing.
Oh.
You watch that, and there are people around just going like, "Oh yes, well the prophet is so good," but nothing is happening. There is no prophet. There is no Quran, and there is no Gabriel. There is no revelation. Like the movie has nothing. Is super funny. You need to watch it if you haven't, and you're going to see all of the things that they stick out because they just didn't want to put it in there. So super good.
Very difficult to do so. In a sense, though, I want to bring this up. This is important. And although, like, it's a few years ago since I was on Jay Smith's channel, but at that time, he was very excited about a German scholar who was going to come on his channel and was going to explain how the German scholarship in the 1800s, actually was trying to fathom and understand Islam through sort of a European perspective of understanding religion based on a gospel and a story about a central figure, Jesus. And they couldn't find a seerah which was acceptable in Islam at that time, because, believe it or not, the seerah, that is the story of like a kind of a gospel of Muhammad, was never an aspect of Islam. You had the Quran, you had the hadiths, the Sunnah, and that was it. You didn't have a seerah. The seerah is something which has become part of Islam towards the end of the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st century, and was never part of Islam beforehand, but was actually revived and dug up by German scholars in the 1800s, in the 19th century, because they were trying to understand the guy behind it. Now, this has had a very negative impact on Islam, because now it's become like a personality cult around this guy Muhammad and trying to understand everything about him, whereas beforehand it never was. It was actually Muhammad was more of something like a spirit, which, from the Shia point of view, it was a light. So there could have been a guy. I say that person was Hanzala. There could have been a guy who was the central figure for the founding of Islam. But he was not as important as the spiritual light, which is Muhammad in the Quran, which could be Jesus or something else. But it's because of German scholarship that the Sirah has become more and more important, and trying to understand the personality of Muhammad has become more and more important. And it's an interesting thing, because when you look into the hadiths and the stories in the Sirah of Muhammad, it's pretty nasty. It's not very nice. There's not a very nice person behind it. But that never was a central point of Islam, essentially, until the war. It began because even though German scholars were interested in it, it was not something which kicked off until the Cold War, when both the Soviets and the CIA were both trying to create their versions of Islam to be able to control the Central Asian republics and states and the border between the Soviet Union and the non-communist world. So the CIA was trying to control. They created what we call Salafism, and they created Wahhabism. Wahhabism is already in Saudi Arabia. They really, really promoted Wahhabism, while the Soviet Union created Salafism. So Wahhabism and Salafism are basically identical, but the only difference is Salafism is more communist, is more socialist, and Wahhabism is more royalist. It's based on the support of the king, the caliph, the leader, as opposed to the people, the rule of the people, and that was because of CIA and Soviet Union. So the reason I'm mentioning this is because what you've brought up here, it's kind of entertaining, but it's also, its hands are tied by what Islam used to view as Muhammad. Muhammad wasn't such a person, but a system of behavior. Muhammad wasn't really a person in Islam for a long time. It was a system of behavior. That system of behavior is what Nermin and other Quranists have said, no, we can't accept this because, the person that's doing this behavior doesn't come across as a spiritual religious guide for all of mankind. And so they're trying to. Yeah.
It becomes like a negative personality cult, which kind of takes you away from the more important spiritual message, which gives like nourishment to your soul.
Exactly.
And you become becomes like a celebrity idol that you worship and you obsess over. I also think that before the advent of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, Islam used to be more focused on intercession. That used to be like a big thing. And Muhammad was at the focus of this like intercessory theology. But with the advent of Wahhabism during the Ottomans, this intercessory view of Islam started to weaken and weaken, and with it also the spirituality, and the focus switched to more this personality cult, this negative personality cult, which I believe, to be honest, I believe it just had its climax with Daesh, with ISIS. That was just the climax of this personality.
It's interesting because it's kind of a Daesh is a fusion of Salafism with Wahhabism. It's like what the Soviets created and what the CIA created comes together and becomes a monster for everything. But these are not things which didn't exist. Bukhara, of course, everybody knows Bukhara. But where is Bukhara? It's in the Soviet Union. That's where it was. That's why the Bukharists were on one side and the Wahhabists was on another side. But these things existed ancient times, but they were sidelined. They were not major aspects of Islam. And then suddenly it became important to polarize the Muslims, and so they revived Wahhabism, which the British had been involved in creating, and they revived. They've tried to push. The other side was pushing Bukhari, and Muslim and Tirmidhi. All of these places are in the Soviet Union. So all of this Kutub al-Sita, the books of the of the Hadith
The 6 books.
is sorry.
The 6 books.
The 6 books. Yeah, all these 6 Hadith books are all basically the Soviet side of things. So you could either be a Wahhabi or a Soviet Salafist, and that's caused the trouble. These things existed beforehand, but there wasn't the focus. The focus was, as you said, something much more spiritual. So in a sense, Quranists are returning to trying to rediscover the spirituality which existed in Islam when Muhammad was not a person, for such a long time. And I think that's very good. It's a very good step because there is nothing likable. The Soviets did a very wrong thing by pushing that form of Islam. Most Muslims were not, Wahhabis is from the Hanbali madhab. Most Muslims were not Hanbalists. And they weren't
mutated from it.
Mutated. Most Muslims in Africa, they were mostly Maliki, and in the rest of the world, they're mostly Hanafi. Then suddenly, it became important for the Americans to push Shafism in Southeast Asia. You know how much influence the Americans had in Southeast Asia, in Australasia. So they started pushing Shafism there, and it became important to push Hanbalism in Pakistan and Afghanistan. And so, Hanbalism and Shafism has taken over, but it wasn't. It used to be Maliki and Hanafi, and Malikis and Hanafis are pretty relaxed compared to the rest of them. But going back further, the Hanafism was that you would not accept any hadith if it contradicted the Quran. Any hadith was cut out.
Exactly, originally. That is the core of Hanafism, or the Hanafi.
That was it. That's right. So it was all thrown out if it contradicted the Quran. Whereas the Wahhabism is you throw out the Quranic verses if they contradict the hadith. This is really weird.
Yeah. It can actually it can abrogate it sometimes.
Yeah,
actually,
abrogate it.
It has the power to do that.
That's kind of like weird.
I'm really sorry, JC and Joe, but I think I have to go right now.
Yeah,
my son is coming back from school.
Yeah, you go ahead. We're going to have to wrap up. So off you go. Thank you so much for joining us. And I hope you'll be back again to talk about other things in the future.
The pleasure was mine. Absolutely. We'll have to do this more often. And hopefully I will have my PowerPoint presentation ready that I want to show JC about many of the topics we have discussed today.
Very, very good. Very good.
So
I look forward to that.
I wish you a nice weekend, all of you.
You too.
Nice Shahbat, and enjoy.
Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Alaikum salam.
Thank you, Norman. Speak soon. Take care.
So you were about to say something, JC. What was it you were about to say? Yeah.
Yes, I found it always odd that the Quran is abrogated by the Hadiths, and then the Hadiths are abrogated by Sharia, and then Sharia is abrogated by whatever your Imam tells you. And it's surely the main thing should be first the Quran, and then everything that follows. So that's why it looks like the Quran is the weakest link, because we are seeing that it told a different story. So instead of focusing too much on hadiths or Sharia, which they have a lot of information, historical information as to how things developed, the Quran is the easy thing to really go through and say, okay, what did it actually say once upon a time? And then to take it from there.
Yeah. That's and also looking into the history as much as we possibly can. Although 7th century history is only outsiders have got something to say. It's pretty bizarre that we don't have any Islamic source from the 7th century or the early 8th century. We don't have anything. It's just pretty bizarre that it's absolutely, before the Abbasids came along, we have nothing. It's all we have is a few Quranic manuscripts. We don't have any history from their side. All the history is from outside. So it's very difficult to piece it all together, but we need to know a lot of context. You have to study the context. And I always like to promote Islam as others saw it. If you want to have a look at those sources to find out what was being said at that time, you need to get hold of the book Islam as Others See It, or Others Saw It. There's a history book by Robert Hoyland. And that's a good introduction. Orthodox Moor, are you still with us or are you gone? Because I noticed he said BRB. Are you still there or are you gone? Yeah, I think he's gone. so it's just you and me, really. Right. So I think thank you so much for introducing me to Nermin. It was a very interesting discussion. I think it went well, and we've got a lot more avenues to explore and rabbit holes to go down. I think as a result of that. Where do you think we go from here, JC?
Yeah. Well, I think Norman is certainly ahead of the curve because he is he was raised as a Muslim, but then he started investigating things, which is basically haram. You shouldn't do that if you're a Muslim. But when you are in the West and you are bombarded with a lot of information on books, TV, and stuff, so you start expanding your mind. So I think what the way that Norman looks at the Quran is going to be the next big thing for Muslims, the ones that explore things. So that's going to be exciting. Maybe if you want to actually do sessions, for example, about Ibn, the difference between Ibn and Walad, I think that's something that Norman particularly will find it very, very useful.
Yeah, because there's not a single time in the Quran it says that God doesn't have a Ben, an Ibn, only Walad. And it says he didn't adopt a Walad. And only one time it says that he doesn't have a Walid, and that's not Allah which is used, it's only Al-Rahman which is used at that time. So interesting to perceive Allah has a Walid, but Al-Rahman does not have a Walid. When you say Allah, it says Inna yakun lahu walid. Indeed, he has a son or he has an offspring. But when it comes to Rahman, he doesn't have an offspring. It's like, wow. What's going on here? What's that?
Yeah,
about?
Actually, yeah, other topic is that maybe we should explore is that the Ibn and Walad also the Rahman and how it all fits into the Trinity, maybe a bit more, and the history. I found that conversation that we had nearly a year ago about what was happening in that part of the world 100 years before Islam, like how it all started in the 6th century, and then we get all the way to Umar. I thought that was fascinating, and it would be useful actually if we go through all of that again. If you have the time.
Yes, I look forward to doing that with you. We should do that. Just for so when should we try to do another Friday morning?
Yeah, we can pencil in next Friday, and we'll take it from there.
Okay, we'll try and pick up on Friday morning. We used to do a show every Friday, which was the khutbah for Messianic Noahide. So we will try to get back and do another Friday show next week or the week after, if possible. I have enjoyed this. I'm grateful to you. Orthodox Moore is still not here, I think, so I'll have to say goodbye for him. And I think it's time to wrap up for today. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we end?
No, that's all. This has been a great conversation, and thank you very much for hosting. I look forward to the next one, and for everyone watching, we'll make sure that you like, share, subscribe, all of those wonderful things, and have a lovely weekend, you all.
Thank you. You too. Okay, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.